Is there such a thing as universal morality? Are there universal human rights which apply to everyone regardless of their nationality or culture? Should universal human rights be enforced everywhere? If polygamy is permitted in some cultures, why is it illegal in other cultures? Hello, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another video. If you are new to this channel, my name is Frank Zhu, and I'm a college professor teaching sociology, history, and philosophy. I'm also an award-winning landscape photographer. Today, let's talk about a theory that is sociological, philosophical, and controversial. It is sociological because sociologists use it to explain, analyze, and compare different cultures. It is philosophical because it concerns human morality and provokes deep thoughts. It is controversial because many people have supported it and many others have challenged it. And they are still debating about its validity and will likely keep doing so in the future. Well, the theory I'm talking about is called cultural relativism. In this video, I will first explain what it is, and then I will explain why it is a widely used theory in sociology, how it generates controversies in philosophy, and why I believe that disagreements and debates are essential to doing philosophy. Cultural relativism is the theory which holds that an individual's beliefs, values, and activities should be understood in terms of his or her own culture. In this view, all the cultural norms, values, customs, religions, political systems, etc., are created and developed within a specific social context and should not be judged by the standards of another culture. All points of view are equally valid, and that truth is relative. No culture is inherently better or worse than another. Therefore, if you are an outsider, you should acknowledge the existence of them and not criticize them or make a judgment. Cultural relativism challenges the idea of universal ethical standards. As a matter of fact, a variation of cultural relativism is ethical relativism. According to ethical relativism, different societies have different moral codes. No one code is a superior or has a special status. There is no objective standard by which we can judge how good or how bad these moral codes are. It also means that what is practiced in a culture is absolutely right in that culture. It is arrogant for you to attempt to judge the conduct of other people. Therefore, if you are an outsider, you should adopt an attitude of tolerance toward the practices of a different culture. Cultural relativism also challenges the idea of a universal truth. For example, according to cultural relativism, there is no such a thing as universal human rights. Any right is relative to culture and the environment. Human rights are based on beliefs, values, and norms of a particular culture. What is considered as a right in one culture may be regarded as a privilege in another. Sociology is descriptive in nature. The job for a sociologist like me is to describe a certain society and how it is organized, not to judge it. Even when we compare different cultures, we don't make value judgments about any one of them. Value judgments are for philosophers whose job is prescriptive in nature. Sociologists throughout the world have observed and described many different cultures and societies. Take me, for example. I have lived and worked in different countries across several continents, including China, Australia, Sweden, Canada, and here, the United States of America. The fact that I have experienced many different cultures firsthand is a major reason why I don't make value judgments about any culture, and it is also a major reason why I love teaching sociology. When observing and describing a society, we sociologists use theories. Theories are helpful because they provide different lenses through which we look at social issues more clearly and in a more rational way. With the theoretical perspectives, we can get a deeper understanding of a culture and explain how it works more systematically. The research and studies by sociologists, including myself, have led to a widespread consensus that cultural relativism, as a sociological theory, is a valid, useful methodological approach. It is helpful in understanding and explaining different cultures in several ways. First, cultural relativism is a theory which helps people see different societies and cultures with an open mind. It helps them understand unfamiliar cultural practices and acknowledge and respect each other's diverse lives. This is particularly useful to sociologists because they can draw more accurate conclusions about outside cultures with little prejudice or bias. Take me, for example. Before I went to live in Australia, I had never been exposed to another culture. For me, Chinese culture was the best. Everything else was either stupid or unreasonable. I was a typical example of ethnocentrism. Of course, what I saw and experienced in the first few months in Australia was quite a cultural shock. But that experience taught me that different cultural practices exist between societies. It didn't take me too long, of course, to realize that no culture was better. They are just different. I became more convinced of this after working and living in Sweden, Canada, and America. In my view, the fact that different cultures exist in this world proves the validity of cultural relativism, that there is no single best cultural pattern. In some cultures, people eat meals with chopsticks. In others, people use forks and knives. Some people simply use their hands. In some cultures, people kiss each other's cheeks as a way of greeting. In others, people do handshaking or they bow to each other. Can we say that handshaking or eating with forks and knives is better? The second reason why many sociologists use and support cultural relativism is that it promotes cooperation and understanding among individuals who live in the same country but are from different cultural backgrounds, such as in America or Canada or Australia. Each individual has a different perspective that is based on their upbringing, experiences, and personal thoughts. By embracing the many differences that people have, it makes cooperation possible, which creates the potential for a stronger and more harmonious society. Finally, cultural relativism encourages and fosters equality across cultures. As we realize that each culture has its own values, customs, beliefs, etc., we have a stronger sense of equality. Take the human rights, for example. From a sociological point of view, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted by the United Nations in 1948, does not treat every country equally, because it is based only on Western beliefs and ignores the values of other countries. For example, one of its articles states that everyone has the right to own property. But in many non-Western cultures, land is seen as a collective responsibility rather than something for any individual to own. In addition, there is a logical problem here. Since every culture is equal, no culture has authority over another. If no culture has authority to tell another what to do, and enforcing universal human rights would require telling other cultures what to do, universal human rights cannot exist. Likewise, polygamy, which is practiced under some religion, should be treated as equally as other forms of marriage in other religions. From the point of view of a relativist, just because polygamy is illegal in some countries, it doesn't mean it should be made illegal everywhere. However, cultural relativism is a highly controversial theory in the field of philosophy. As I said earlier, philosophy is prescriptive in nature. Philosophers, including professors of philosophy, love making judgments about everything, and cultural relativism is no exception. In my philosophy classes, for example, the theory of relativism is always one of the topics which draw the most participation, active discussions, and debates. Of course, opinions are divided even more among philosophers. The criticisms are not about how accurate the theory is in description, but about what it advocates and promotes. Again, take the human rights, for example. Critics argue that cultural relativism hinders the enforcement of universal human rights by allowing harmful practices to continue. Human rights are violated in many parts of the world, they claim, such as in places where female genital mutilation is practiced. But this theory makes it appear ethically wrong to condemn it or intervene. If no universal moral standards exist, then actions like slavery or genocide cannot be condemned. Critics also point out that cultural relativism is often used to justify restrictions on freedom of expression in some parts of the world. They criticize cultural relativism for its non-intervention attitude towards polygamy. They argue that such a practice of marriage is discrimination and degrading of women. In addition, philosophers argue about whether there are universal moral truth or universal morality. Critics of cultural relativism insist that there is a need for morality to have a universal dimension, and that some moral rules are more universally applicable than others. For example, they insist that the moral rule "do not lie" has a universal value, because if everyone in the world acknowledged it and accepted it, we could live together harmoniously. Some other moral values are universal as well, such as trustworthiness, honesty, benevolence, and being fair. In my opinion, the fact that cultural relativism has generated lots of controversies is fundamental to philosophy. As I said earlier, philosophy is prescriptive in nature. Doing philosophy is pointing out both sides of an issue and making judgments. Philosophy as a discipline thrives on challenging established beliefs, questioning assumptions, exploring unsettled matters. Criticisms against cultural relativism are beneficial for testing arguments and sharpening critical thinking. They contribute to our understanding of different societies and cultures. In conclusion, cultural relativism is a theory which holds that all cultures are relative and no culture is better than any other. It is a useful approach in understanding and explaining different social and cultural phenomena. At the same time, however, it should be kept in mind that cultural relativism is also a debatable theory in the field of philosophy. In my opinion, only when we look at it from both sociological and philosophical perspectives can we fully understand its usefulness and its role in advancing our understanding of different cultures. Well, I think that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.